Hey guys, it's Brandon from S2S Creations. Thank you for stopping by the YouTube channel. This is brand new. This is going to be something that in 2021 we are very excited to launch and share with you guys, and we're hoping that this is something that can become more of a thing going forward. And there really isn't any like clear-cut definition of what this really is going to be, but we would like for this channel, and I would like for this channel to be more centered around footwear and leatherworking and how it's related, and kind of just showing you guys our journey, but as well as helping you guys out and whatever it may be that you guys are seeking to do. So without further ado, thank you so much again, and let's go ahead and jump into your questions. Customs are not cheap. That's very true. That's very true for the consumer. That's very true for the maker, or the producer in this case. One thing that I'm gonna kind of give a disclaimer before we get all into this is that these are just my own views, and this is what I have gone through. I cannot speak for any other customizers out there, cord winners out there, shoemakers, whatever you want to call it. I cannot speak for them. This is just something that I personally have come across in my leatherworking journey and footwear journey. But something to consider is that a lot of people get the misconception that people like myself or people like the Shoe Surgeon or SD Custom Footwear, all those guys, you know, it's just really easy for them. And some of them, yes, but a lot of them, no. Like, it's not necessarily easy. If it was easy, everybody else would be doing this right now. And they are. People are trying to get into this, but they're finding out really quickly that this is not a cheap market to be in. For example, a sewing machine, which you can kind of see off in the corner over there, that sewing machine right there costs around $3 grand. That's after delivery. Yes, I said $3 grand, not 300, nothing like that. A lot of people think that these are the type of sewing machines that you can just go to your local Jo-Ann Fabrics and buy. And while that is true to some extent, the kind of machine that we are talking about is not really the same. These are industrial type sewing machines. Those are not cheap. They're very different from what you typically get at like a Jo-Ann Fabrics or like a Hobby Lobby or whatever. Your local sewing store probably won't even carry something like this. I remember when I was trying to find something like that, nobody had it. I had to look online. So yeah, to put that in perspective already, that's $3 grand, and that's only one piece of machinery. Now, to get started, you really only need about one piece of machinery to really get you going. But if you think about it, you gotta buy material, and that's why I have different leathers that you see all over here. All those leathers right there, they all cost a certain amount. This leather right here, it does cost an amount, and you have to think, when you're buying leather, it's not like buying fabric where you can just go into a store and be like, can I get 1 or 2 yards of this leather that I really like? Now, some places might do that, but I haven't been to a single store that has sold leather by the yard. At least I haven't been to one physically. Every place I've bought from has done it either in like terms of panels, like a 12 by 24 inch panel. They've also done half hides or whole hides, but basically, leather's not cheap. Leather is expensive. Unless you just so happen to own a tannery or you have a plug that can hook you up with some leather, it's not a cheap thing to acquire. Now you can get cheap leather, but me personally, I do not like spending money on cheap materials. I prefer to spend money on more expensive, higher quality materials. So that covers leather in the machines. Then you gotta look at tools. So some of the tools that I've got here, you know, you got a craft knife, which you probably might not be able to see this very well on camera. But this craft knife, now granted, this is an expensive craft knife. You don't have to get one this expensive. This is just what I choose to use. This one I believe was like 80 bucks. I can't remember honestly off the top of my head if this was 80 bucks or not. You can easily use an X-Acto knife, but this knife is designed to be reusable and sharpened over time. It's a great knife, I love it. It works great for pretty much everything that I use it for. Other than that, you gotta look at stuff like, you know, a bone folder. This is not that expensive, but you get my point. Like, these things add up over time because you need this. You're gonna need heat erasable pens or silver pens that you can mark off with water. You're gonna need leather shears. You're gonna need rulers. You're gonna need, well, if you don't want to do this at your home, you're gonna need an entire studio, which is exactly what I have. And we can get more into that too. You'll need a cutting mat, all that other kind of stuff. And then you're also gonna need a last. And a last is just a three-dimensional object that basically represents a foot. But basically, that stuff right there, the minimum I've seen a typical last run for is around 80 bucks to 100 bucks. And that's That's a cheap last. You can get more expensive ones if you really wanted to, but as long as it works for the shape that you need, then it should be good to go. And other than that, you also, not to mention, you need donors. So what I mean by that is, this sole, I don't manufacture my soles. These soles come from legitimate pairs of Nikes that I actually have to buy and take apart and then use that sole for whatever custom that the client wants or whatever custom I want to sell, or you get the picture. But basically, a shoe like this is not necessarily cheap to make. The other only thing that we haven't really talked about that includes cost is the producer's time of how long it takes them to make this and what their time is worth. Well, with my pricing, I do include my time that I spend on each shoe. It takes me about 2 to 3 days to get an entire pair done. And that's from start to finish in terms of as soon as I get into the studio and start working with it to when I leave the studio. I don't stay in the studio, 24 hours. I don't charge you for that whole time frame. I only charge you for the time that I actually work on your shoe. So a lot of people forget about that, and that's fine. I totally get that, because you're a consumer and you're used to buying stuff from like Nike or Adidas or whoever. You're so used to just buying from a huge corporation that's got factories and upon factories upon factories for all of this stuff to kind of get done and get made. Well, that's not a luxury that we have. Circling back to the original question at hand is, why are customs so expensive? It has to do a lot with the material cost as well as my time, basically. It's what I value my time as. And that's something as an artist that if you're thinking about getting into this, you need to really consider what your time is worth. There's been too many times where I have given a quote to somebody and I severely undercharged for their project because I didn't factor in how much time was actually going to go into this shoe and how much of my skill I think I'm worth. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, when you add on certain things like I want to get embroidery done, I want to get personalization done, I want to get custom tongue tags made, that kind of stuff too also adds up. So you got to think about, as a business owner, are you going to charge at cost, or are you going to mark it up and get a profit off of it? Even if that profit's only like $5. That's all things you have to consider. That all goes into the cost of the final product here. So yeah, shoes are not cheap, making shoes are not cheap, selling shoes are not cheap, and buying shoes are not cheap, especially when it comes to handmade premium footwear like what I sell and what a bunch of other guys out there definitely provide you guys with. So keep an eye out for S2S_creations on Instagram. You can also follow it on Facebook, and obviously you can subscribe here and like this video if you care to. Throw some comments down in the comment section for what you want next. I'm curious to know what you guys really want to know about. But yeah, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. This has been fun. Have a good one, guys. See ya.